And I said, well, no, I said, you're wrong. I said, this is a public company in which your family happens to have an interest.
Slater came in and made his bid across the table. My father wasn't the slightest bit interested. He just told Slater to go to hell. He wasn't interested. Slater was half his age. My father was a military man, or had a military background. And I think he was horrified to think this young man had the audacity to suggest that he might take over cork manufacturing.
I mean, he was in a way typical of a large number of people running family companies that have become public but still go on treating them as if they are family businesses. I'm just going to pause for a minute because I want a cup of tea, if I may.
Whereas you were saying what?
Well, people put money up for the shares, don't they? They expect a reward.
Jim Slater then did something that had hardly ever been done in Britain before. He made a hostile takeover. He went behind Colonel Coote's back and secretly began to buy up Cork's shares in the stock market at a very high price. To the city establishment, it was an outrageous and an ungentlemanly act, but there was nothing they could do to stop him. And as Slater bought the shares, he ruthlessly exposed the illusion of Colonel Coote's power. Coote's position as a local dignitary and the respect he and his family received from the workers all came from the belief that he owned the company. And Slater suddenly showed he didn't.
When the takeover happened, I was walking back to my office from somewhere in the factory, and up until that moment, people would have said, "Good morning, Mr. Andrew. Good morning, Mr. Andrew. How are you, Mr. Andrew? Did you have a nice weekend, Mr. Andrew? What did you do this weekend, Mr. Andrew?" At that day, nobody said anything. Until that day, I thought that everybody is making a fuss of you because they like you. Because they like you as a chap, which is quite important. When you're in that position, you want people to like you as a chap for what you are. And of course, it's a fallacy. Of course they don't. I don't like anybody else in a similar situation.
Why did they like you then?
Because I was my father's son.
To fund the takeover, Slater had borrowed a great deal of money. To pay it back, he immediately sold off large parts of the land and the factories. They were demolished for property development. Slater had invented a formula which he now repeated. The sales of assets from each takeover were then used to fund the next and bigger one. He took over companies that made metal windows, rubberware, car seats, even bedroom slippers. And soon, others began to copy him. A group of takeover men grew up who began to break up the old paternalist world that dominated British industry.
The comfortable scene that these people broke in on was too comfortable, was old-fashioned, was uncompetitive, was cartelised and convenient for the people who were running it, needed breaking up, was breaking up. It needed something vulgar like market forces breaking into it. That kind of thing is often caused to happen by rather vulgar people. It's not the worse for that. But of course, there were some real S.P.I.Vs of different kinds among them. Of course there were.
Was Slater a S.P.I.V?
Yes, I think he was.
This is the Great Room, or the Saloon, as they called it in the 18th century. Remarkable room, built with extravagant design. All the panels on the ceiling were painted by William Kent himself, and are the love life of the gods of ancient Greece.
The social centre for the takeover men was the Clermont Club, a gambling club in Berkeley Square in Mayfair. It was run by a right-wing aristocrat, John Aspinall. He was a ferocious professional gambler, and those he admired and let into his club were people he described as risk-takers.
Some people actually seek risk, and they put themselves at risk voluntarily. And I think this is a spirit that is to be admired. I think it's the spirit that built the prosperity that everybody in this country is enjoying today. It was created by adventurers, by merchant adventurers, by pirates, if you like Morgan and Drake.
£200 for £200. Cards, please. 8 cards. 6. Could I have a bet of £50, please?
The Clermont was considered to be fast, in one word. Fast, gambling, up all night, kept odd hours, didn't do a regular 9 to 5 and yet still managed to make millions, which slightly annoyed some people. Nouveau riche businessmen were forming a new set in society which had it was like a separate court, a separate set, which flourished on its own and attracted fairly fast girls, of course, who were mostly after the money, the rich men, the diamond necklaces and all that.
Someone was telling me that you won £1,000 playing this game.
Well, I have done, but not for myself, for somebody else, Because I can't afford to play with that sort of money.
Well, how does playing with other people's money compare with playing with your own?
Well, in a way, it's more exciting because you can imagine it's your own and you can do many more things that you wouldn't dare do with your own money. If a bank comes up for £100 and you really feel that it's going to win with your own money, you wouldn't dream of doing it because you can't afford to lose £100. At least I can't. With somebody else's, you don't worry.
How old are you?
Me? I'm 20.
The other dominant member of the Clermont set was James Goldsmith. He had briefly been famous in the 50s when he had eloped with a Bolivian heiress called Isabel Patino. She later died in childbirth. Goldsmith now became a close friend of Jim Slater's.
Jimmy Goldsmith and I were great friends. We used to dine together and play backgammon together very frequently. He was, I think it's fair to say this, better educated, more cultured, from a more cultured background, and more of a bon vivant, really, as well. But in terms of business, we were very similar. We were definitely, for want of a better word, hungry.
Slim and fit.
Goldsmith specialised in targeting food companies. His first success was Slimsear, the makers of a slimming bread. He immediately sold off many of its assets.
Keep you slim and fit.
But he immediately got rid of Trendy and he got the whole thing for nothing. So it was a very good deal. And then it was one of many. And I remember at one time he had Slimsear bread, Prosear bread, he had Elizabeth Shaw chocolates, he had Carson's chocolates, he had that excellent water biscuits. I still use them. What are they from? Carr's water biscuits, Jacob's water biscuits, Holland's toffee, and Singleton and Cole snuff. I never used that. But he had so many products you see all around you. And he had Chewits. And when he bought Chewits, he said, do you know, Aspers, 40 million Chewits a week are consumed in this country. And I said, what is a Chewit?
Chewits, even chewier than a 15-story block of flats.
I think Goldsmith wanted power. I think that Goldsmith was, as a personality, by far the most powerful of them all, a formidable enemy, a ruthless combatant. There is a story of Goldsmith at school which I'd like to bring into this because I think it's to do with the character of the man. He was turbulent schoolboy, to put it mildly, didn't get on with his housemaster, but when the time came for him to leave early, he turned up in the housemaster's study and said, I know we haven't always got on, but I don't want to part on bad terms. I've got a present for you. It's the complete recording of The Marriage of Figaro, which in those days was on Fragile 78 Records. The housemaster quite melted at this, reached out for the parcel, and Goldsmith dropped it. A combative man.